All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. If we haven't met yet, I'm Erin Livingston. I'm going to be going through the application today for our solid waste grant program. I'm going to talk about every part of the application and then also just the overall process of how to apply and what you have to do. And I hope that everybody has had a chance to look at the application before now. Um, and I'm going to mute my phone. Sorry about that. Okay. But yeah, so I hope you've had a chance to look at the application and have your questions ready for me. So we will go ahead and get started. There we go. Okay, so we do ask that you keep your phones or your speakers or everything muted during the presentation. You are able to ask questions. We have the chat where you can do that, and we will be monitoring that throughout, and we will answer them as they come up. We don't need to wait until the end. So just as you think of a question, go ahead and type it in, and we'll answer it as soon as we see it. Um, if you want to go ahead, if you're watching this webinar with somebody else in the room, go ahead and enter everybody's name in the chat just so that we know who all is in attendance today. And as you heard, it is being recorded, so you will be able to watch this again if you need to refresh yourself as you are filling out the application. Let's see. So if you're on the phone and you want to ask your question, you can still raise your hand. If you need to ask it verbally instead of typing it into the chat, you just press *9 and that'll raise your hand and we can unmute you at that point. So, but everybody can use the chat at any point as well. All right, so these dates you should already know. Some of it's already happened. The application did open on September 2nd. Today we are having this workshop. And then 4 weeks from today, the application will close. And it is at noon. It is not at 5 p.m. So just make sure of that. And just to let you know, all the grants selected would either start funding in either March or September of 2026, and then all the projects do have to be completed by the end of May 2027. So just keep that in mind as you're planning out your project and letting us know about it in the application. All right, so I'm going to start off by going through the basics about eligibility, that sort of thing. All right, so we do have $960,000 available for this grant, this round of grants. We do expect this to, or we are planning for this to be our only call for applications during this biennium. But if not all the money gets given out during this first round, we would have another round in the spring of next year, 2026. So the application is available only online. And as I mentioned, and I'm going to mention it probably a couple more times, the application is due at noon on October 14th. I just want to make sure that everybody hears that. We cannot accept late applications, and it's probably a better idea to try and get it submitted a little bit early, just in case there is some kind of glitch or something. You don't want to not get it in just because of some technical issue. So, this is a reimbursement grant. So that means that you will expend the funds, you will submit the documentation to us, and then we would reimburse you for those funds afterwards. So just keep that in mind. All right, so we do have a regional solid waste management plan. There's the link to it. There's a link to it, I believe, from the application, but also in the application on one of the tabs, it has all of the objectives and goals. And so any project that you are applying for must be consistent with at least one goal and objective from our solid waste management plan. That is a requirement by law. So you don't have to meet an objective in every goal at all. Just one will suffice. So yeah. All right, those that are eligible to apply are cities, counties, public schools or school districts, and then special law districts. And by special law districts, I mean those with the authority and the responsibility for either water quality protection or municipal solid waste management. So this could be river authorities, municipal utility districts, some management districts. And if there's any question about your eligibility, you may need to have like the documentation that proves that you do meet that. So keep that in mind. If you are a special district, go ahead and find that documentation for us, and you can include it in your application. All right, so private industry is not eligible for these grants, and but the projects that are selected for funding cannot be in competition with the private industry. The funds cannot be used to create an unfair advantage over private industry. So, um, private industry has been notified that the application is open, and they will be notified again once the application, all the applications are received and it closes, and they will be given access to all of the applications at that point as well. So they are able to review them, and let us know if they have any issues with any of the projects because they create an unfair advantage over their business. Um, so just be aware of that. We'll go into the private industry section later. Um, but so private industry can include things like composters, waste haulers, recyclers, anything like that. Um, and yeah, if your project gets submitted and it's found to be in competition, it will be thrown out, or at least the portion that is in competition would be thrown out for sure and not scored. So, um, yeah, let's see. Hold on, sorry. Okay, so there is the section in the application where you do need to indicate that you have contacted private industry. This is a required portion of the application for a few of the grant types, specifically the solid waste or the source reduction and recycling grants, the citizens collection station and transfer station grants, and then the education and training grants if it's some kind of demonstration project. And then if there's any other project that you think maybe could be in competition with them, go ahead and complete this section of the application as well. But it is mandatory for those types of projects that I just mentioned. So let's see. So when you do contact them, you want to make sure, first of all, that you contact the right type of company. You don't want to contact, your curbside recycling collector if you're doing some kind of composting project. That doesn't count. You need to contact the correct type of company. You want to tell them about your project, let them know that you're applying for this grant, and that in case the person you're talking to isn't aware that there's a rule about it not being in competition with their work, their services they provide, let them know about that. And then if they have any concerns about your project, you would need to address those concerns by either adjusting your project or just not applying at all if there's no way to adjust it so that it isn't in competition with them. So you want to make sure that you go ahead and do this as early as possible. Go ahead and do it now, just in case you need to make some major adjustments to the project that you are planning. Um, so yeah, and we have had to, at the last minute, during the scoring process, we have had to get rid of some projects or some parts of projects. So you don't want to go through this whole process, and spend all that time and then that happens. So make sure you do it now. If you need help finding somebody to contact, you can definitely reach out to me, but you can also do a Google search. You can talk to somebody else in a neighboring community, or something like that. TCQ could also be able to provide you with some contacts if needed. All right, similar programs. There is a section of the application that asks about similar programs. We would like you to contact your neighbors, others doing this that have done this type of project in the past. I mean, it could even be in North Carolina if it's a really unique project and nobody has done it before. But for just a couple of reasons. We don't want efforts to be duplicated. We don't want two neighboring communities applying for the same thing when maybe it would be appropriate to work together in some way instead. Um, and also, I'm sorry, I have been sick, so I'm going to be coughing a lot. I'm sorry. Um, and I lost my train of thought. Hold on just a second. Um, so yeah, we don't want to duplicate efforts, and also we want everybody to learn from others. So if somebody's already done the type of project before, you can learn, what worked, what didn't work, and so everything will just keep getting better and better as we continue. So if you do need help finding somebody that's done something similar, you can reach out to me again, and I can help you find something like that, somebody to contact. All right, we're going to go through the eligible project categories now. Just a quick overview of those. And everything I am saying today is in our guidance documentation or guidance documents that are posted on the website, where you access the application. And if you haven't seen all that, it is in the right sidebar of that web page. So there's a lot of documents over there, that'll help you as you fill out this application. So if anything doesn't make sense, maybe it makes more sense. What I'm saying doesn't make sense today. Maybe it'll make more sense in that documentation on our website. But yeah, we're going to go through all of the categories now. So the first one is our local enforcement grants. These are for projects that are working towards, or the goal is to prevent or prosecute or capture illegal dumping. Identify those that are illegal dumping in your community. So the it can be for investigations, enforcement, and education. We've had some, so we have the ones that are actually doing the surveillance, maybe with the cameras, or we've also had on the side of the prosecutors. We've also paid for grants for that as well. So this is not for code enforcement type activities, such as setting out your garbage cans too early. That type of activity is not funded, or would not be funded by this grant program. And also, we can't do anything related to industrial and hazardous waste with these grant funds, because these are specifically for municipal solid waste. Um, so a lot of times for these types of grants, we do pay for the equipment, such as the cameras and the servers, and maybe the screens for monitoring the surveillance videos. And we've also paid for salary and trucks and that sort of thing. All right, so litter and illegal dumping cleanup and community collection events. These are for periodic cleanup events of litter and illegal dumping. We don't clean up scrap tire sites though, or it's for those community collection events. So for the litter ones, it can be like a 1 day event, or it could also be like I've listed here, the trash cans if it's in a park, or some kind of public space in your community where there's a littering problem. It could be one of those, or we could pay for those. And then for those collection events, we are limited to 4 events within a 12-month period. And it's for things that you don't already collect on a regular basis. So if you're already collecting heavy trash monthly, then we're not going to pay for that. But if that's not something that's currently offered in your community, then that is an option. Other types of events that would be in here are things like electronics collections, if you want to do like a large appliance collection, if you're doing tires where you're picking them up off the side of the road or people are bringing them to you, we can do that. And just to differentiate, when I said excluding scrap tire sites, I mean not those sites that are listed on the TCQ scrap tire report where there's like 100,000 tires. We're not going to clean that up. But if people bring in tires to your event, or you're cleaning up just random, you know, onesie twosie tires along the road, we can do that. But yeah, not those gigantic scrap tire sites. Um, let's see. And then just to clarify on those four events in a 12-month period, so it is possible to have, let's say you want to have a tire collection event and you want to have it at three locations in your county, and you want to have that, you know, in, I don't know, you're going to have it in 1 month in April, and you're going to have another event in October, 6 months later. That would be considered, if you're having those three different locations on the same day, that would be considered one event. So that would just be considered two events. That would not be considered six events. And hopefully that makes sense. So you can have one event in multiple locations on the same day. Um, but yeah, if you have questions, if I didn't explain that well, just let me know. All right, the next one is source reduction and recycling. This is for the diversion of materials from the waste stream through reuse, recycling, or source reduction. So it's for collection and processing and transportation of those materials. If you're going to be doing some kind of efficiency improvements or tracking, whether you need some kind of software, or education and promotion, although if it's just education, it's probably going to be under the education and training category of projects. Um, so we, with this, in this type of project, we often pay for the facilities where the drop-off facilities for recycling, and so we're paying for balers, we're paying for supplies. We can pay for outreach materials. Um, we can pay for signage for a facility. We can pay for, just like we can pay for those trash cans at, like in a park or a public space, we can pay for recycling bins also in a public space as well. And we can even pay for a whole new facility or a part, an expansion of an existing facility as well. All right, next one is local solid waste management plans. This is to either develop a new plan for your community or to amend an existing plan if you already have one. And just like all of the other projects, it must be consistent with our regional solid waste management plan. And so funds for under this type of project would probably be used for, consulting services, maybe some type of printing if you need to print the plan, or meeting hosting. I don't know what, you may need to use under this. We don't get this type of project very often. But yeah, it is an eligible project category. All right. Next one is citizens collection stations and small registered transfer stations. So we can pay for the construction and for the equipment for citizens collection stations, for municipal solid waste. We do encourage you to include recycling, or the opportunity for recycling for your residents that are using the facility. If you are creating one of these facilities or updating an existing one. And we also can pay for the design and construction of a municipal solid waste transfer station, um, as long as it qualifies for a registration or notification from TCQ. It cannot be at the permit level. It needs to be at the registration or notification tier. That is the rule from TCQ. I think it's actually in the rule in the laws. So, and I think the reasoning for that maybe is just timing, but there's maybe some others reasons for that as well. So we'll pay for, yeah, the design and construction, some equipment, signage, protective gear, things like that, whatever you need. So for household hazardous waste, sorry. Um, this is for the collection, recycling, reuse, or proper disposal of household hazardous waste. And so this often goes to fund either permanent facilities, one-day collection events, or we could also pay for mobile events as well. Um, Often people will also include electronics and tires into their events, and that is totally fine. You would still apply under the household hazardous waste section, as that's going to be the bigger portion of the event, I would imagine. So, and let's see. And for all HHW projects, you must coordinate with TCQ. They do have a page where they post information about facilities or upcoming events for the public, and there is a requirement to let them know about that. All right, technical studies. This is for the collection and analysis of data and information for to help you make decisions for your solid waste management program. Um, so expenses under this one would typically include, again, like the solid waste management plan, maybe some consultant services, maybe some type of printing or advertising, um, and any kind of just administrative expenses that you need for producing this type of study. And there are some requirements about like the approval process. So if you have questions about that, I'm not. They are in the guidance documents, and I can also try and help you answer any questions you have if you want to do that type of project. All right, and the final project category is education and training. Um, let's see, I'm gonna turn off Teams. Okay. So education and training is the last one. So we encourage every project to include an education and training component to it, just to enhance your project. But maybe you're doing a project that is specifically education and training, like you are trying to, um, cut contamination in your recycling program, your curbside recycling program. You would apply under this section, if it's something like that. Let's see. So, lost my train of thought again. Sorry. Um, so yeah, so we'll pay for education and outreach materials. We can pay for contractual services if you need to have somebody help you design materials, for the printing, for advertising, things like that. And I'll just mention it here, but I'll mention it again. We don't pay for promotional items, only educational items. So keep that in mind as you are filling out your application.
Hey, Erin, we have a
Yes.
few questions in the chat. Did you want to
Yeah.
pause for a moment?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm going to read out the first one. So the grant guidance notes that disposal costs for household hazardous waste may be covered for first-time applicants and that funding requests for a second event are considered at the discretion of the Solid Waste Management Committee. Could you clarify what additional information or justification the committee looks for when evaluating requests to fund a second household hazardous waste event within the same grant cycle?
Yeah. So I would say, oh, okay, wait. The last part you said within the same grant cycle? Is that what you said?
Yes, it says, could you clarify what additional information or justification the committee looks for when evaluating requests to fund a second household hazardous waste event within the same grant cycle?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that the need. I mean, maybe if you haven't had one in a long time, um,
Oh, she said ignore that
they.
part. She mistyped.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, if they like your project, and you're going to get funded, they're going to pay for the disposal of the HHW. I've never seen them not. They may adjust the amount, just if they think it's too big, but I would say that they're gonna pay for the disposal. I would not be concerned about that at all. So
Okay, and then the
hopefully
next
that
one.
answers it. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. The application instructions state that any backup plan must fall under the same project category as the originally funded project. For example, if our primary project is a household hazardous waste collection event, would the backup options be limited strictly to household hazardous waste related activities such as a second event, education, or supplies? Could you provide guidance on what kinds of backup activities are considered acceptable under this requirement?
So yes, the three options or three examples that you gave are appropriate. And yes, they do have to stay within the same category. That is a TCQ rule. Yeah, you can't go do something completely different. But um, if you've already collected tires at your event, you could do a second tire event. You could do a smaller event, such as a BOPA event, which is batteries, oil, latex paint, and antifreeze. Those maybe you could do on shorter notice. It's not going to be as much money if you only have, I don't know, $15,000 left or something, depending on what you have left. Another option is possibly if you could work it out with a community that has a permanent facility, if they would be willing to do some kind of voucher program with your community so that residents that, call you 2 months later, they just missed the event, or even a week after the event happens, they could go and use that permanent facility potentially if you can work that out with them. But yeah, they definitely have to stay within the same category. Um, yeah.
And then we have a couple more if you're okay with that.
Yeah, totally fine.
For the household hazardous waste TCQ notification, does that need to happen before applying or be part of the preparation and timeline for if a grant is awarded?
Yeah, it's just if the grant's awarded. It's a 45-day notice, so it just has to happen 45 days before your event. I just let everybody know that you have to do it just to, I guess, get it in there one more time. So, just to make you aware that that is a requirement.
Next is, can a jurisdiction submit multiple grant applications? If so, will HJC limit the number of grant awards to said jurisdiction?
Okay. Yes, you can absolutely submit more than one grant application. I wouldn't submit the same type of project for multiple different departments, that would look bad. But if they are different types of projects, it is perfectly acceptable to submit multiple projects. So if you have your local enforcement people wanting to submit, you need to have a 1-day event and you need some trash cans and recycling bins at a park. That is fine to submit those three projects. As far as funding and us limiting the number of projects, we do not limit the number of projects. And I don't believe that the scoring committee takes that into consideration at all during their scoring process. Each project is scored individually, and we start at the top, and the highest scoring projects get funded first, and then we stop funding when we run out of money. So if all three of your projects score really well, and they all get funded, then they all get funded. So.
Next is, for clarity, multiple cleanups could be performed in one day and would be considered as one event.
Correct. Yeah, if you have people at 5 different locations cleaning up, that would be considered one cleanup event. You just spaced people out.
And then we might need a little more context on this one, but it says, would generators qualify?
Um, I mean, if there's a good reason why you need a generator for your project, they're not gonna buy, like, we're not gonna buy generators, like, in the off chance that there's a hurricane and you want to keep running something at your facility or something. We're not going to buy generators or something like that for that situation. So, I don't know that we've ever paid for generators since I've been doing this, but I also don't know that anybody has ever asked for them. So, if there's a good reason why you need one, I don't know of a specific rule that says we can't pay for generators. So, yeah,
Okay.
just make sure you explain the reasoning.
And last one in the chat for right now is, to confirm, the only required attachment is the project implementation timeline. Anything additional is optional.
Um, yes, that is correct. That is the only required attachment. I mean, I think pictures are good. I think quotes are good. I think other things are good. But yeah, the only one that is required is that timeline. Anything else pop up? continue.
Oh, I'm
Um,
so sorry. I was muted. There was one more.
okay.
Um, also, if the private industry notification is not applicable, do we just skip over this section?
Yeah, yeah, that's fine to just skip. But please just, make sure you are correct in your thinking that that does not apply to you. But yeah, yeah, you can skip it if it doesn't apply. Mm, there we go. All right. So I've already kind of talked a little bit about eligible expenses, but we're going to go into a little bit more detail on it now. Um, so, um, and this is not going to be a comprehensive list of everything you could possibly be allowed to buy. Um, and I don't have a slide here for things that aren't included, but I'll try to remember at the end of this section to kind of talk through things that are not included. They are mentioned, I believe, all in the guidance documents, but um, yeah, we'll get started. Okay, so first of all, personnel. This is for salary and fringe if you want to request that as well. This is for new positions. We cannot pay for an existing position. If you have somebody who's doing a job and they are getting a completely new job and it's a new position, we can pay for that, but we can't pay for somebody to do their existing job. So that is not allowed. Um, when you are filling it out, we do limit it to 15 months just because that is the length of the grant period if you get chosen for the first round of funding. But do take into account, like, if it's going to take you a while to hire somebody. We have had people where they hire them immediately and they're ready to go on that day one, but other times it takes several months. And then I know it sounds like a great problem to have is too much extra funding at the end that you've not spent, but we don't like you to have that problem. We want you to get really close to spending to zero. So just take that into account. So if you really think it's gonna take you a couple of months to get somebody hired, maybe ask for only 13 months of salary and fringe. So, all right. For travel, this must be travel that is directly related to the project that you are funded for. So it's probably going to be something like conferences or trainings or something like that. We can pay for the actual transportation costs, whether that's, mileage or airplane flight. This is the only situation where we can pay for food if it's the per diem. And we can pay for the hotel as well. And you're going to need to follow whatever your city or county's policy is on travel. You would not follow our policy. So, for example, for HJC, they don't pay for food anywhere in our 13 county region. But if you are in Walker County and you're going to training over in Matagorda County and your county would pay for that food normally, your per diem for going that far, then we would reimburse you for that. Um, so hopefully that makes sense. But yeah. All right, supplies. These are items with a unit cost of $1,000 or less. Typically, we would like you to only be purchasing the quantity of supplies that you're going to use, like maybe in a year or so, or during the grant cycle or grant period. Maybe a little bit extra. We can pay for things like office supplies if you're going to be doing printing of flyers or something else like that. And then anything you do purchase, though, needs to be used 100% for solid waste. So if you are purchasing paper to make flyers, you got to make sure that you keep that paper separate from everybody else's paper, for example. So, things that maybe are included in this for other types of grants for, like, permanent facilities. Maybe we'll pay for baling wire if you've got a recycling facility. For the one-day events, we often pay for things like safety vests and gloves and maybe the grabbers and trash bags, things like that. Um, so, and all kinds of things. If you have a HHW facility, all the different boxes and barrels and all those types of things. So, yeah. All right, so equipment, this is new. The amount went up to $10,000. So instead of 5,000 as in past years. So equipment is anything with a unit price of over $10,000. And this would include the freight and setup costs, are included in that $10,000. So all equipment would need to be approved by HJC before you make that purchase. And I'm gonna make sure that you are following all of your entities' rules regarding procurement of that equipment. Again, just like for the travel, you're gonna follow your rules. You're not gonna follow our rules, except for making sure you get things approved by us. And then let's see, you will need to place all equipment on your inventory and then also let us know about it and we will place it on our inventory. And then in the future, when you're getting rid of any piece of equipment, you do need to notify HJC and request instructions. So on how you can proceed with getting rid of that equipment. So we do keep a documentation on all equipment and controlled assets that are purchased with these grant funds, and TCQ also gets that copy every other year of the full list. So going back till the beginning if people still have that equipment. So um, let's see. You want to make sure that you are getting the right equipment for the job. So, it's going to handle the materials you have. It's going to be used frequently. Again, it's only going to be used for solid waste. Um, I would say there are instances where people need to, for example, for its local enforcement, and you're going to buy a truck, but you only do enforcement of solid waste laws about 80% of the time. Say we can pay for 80% of that truck, and then you would have to pay for the 20% that you're doing other kinds of enforcement. So just keep that in mind for something like that. So we can split up that cost um, and share that cost if you need to use the equipment for something else. Let's see. Oh, and then if you don't know about HJC Buy, it is available to you to use. Um, and they've got all kinds of equipment on there that may be something you're looking for this grant. So,
We have a bunch of
um,
questions rolling in if you want to pause.
can I get to the
Yeah,
end of this section? I'll tell you.
let, let me know.
It'll be soon. Okay. All right, so for construction, so just like for equipment, HJC does need to approve all construction before it happens. Um, if you move forward, I guess there's a possibility we wouldn't be able to pay for that construction um, if you move forward without us getting to approve it beforehand. You again need to follow your laws and state laws regarding any contracting and bidding. And then let's see. So this could include things like the cost of planning the project, the cost of materials and labor. Um, let's see, the cost of any kind of subcontractor that is actually doing the work here, doing the construction. Um, yeah. All right, contractual. So these are for professional services that somebody else is going to be providing for your project. So something that, somebody else is doing for y'all that is not employed by you. So a lot of times this is like our HHW companies, the electronics recyclers, maybe it's some kind of uh, the marketer people, I can't think, the graphic design people that, make materials for you, the outreach materials, things like that. We do have a regional contract for both household hazardous waste and for used electronics. So you are welcome to use those contracts, but you are not required at all. If you want to go with some other company that you feel better about, that is fine as well. But our contracts are available for you to use. The information about those is on our website, but you can also ask me if you can't find it. Let's see. All contractual costs do need to be approved by HJC in advance. Um, and I think I've said everything. All right, and then this is the final section, and then we'll get into those questions that y'all have. So other is anything else that doesn't fall into one of those other categories that I already mentioned. So if it's equipment, but it's under $10,000, you're going to include it here. A lot of electronics type items go here. PPE for your, like if it's a for a permanent facility. Um, there is like stuff for signage and printing, recycling containers, all kinds of things. So I said I was going to go through things that were not eligible for funding. So, as I mentioned, we don't pay for food. This includes water. So, if you need to have bottles of water available for your people during your one-day event, you need to pay for those yourself. We will not pay for those, or maybe you can find a local company to sponsor that for you. Um, as I mentioned, we don't pay for promotional items. So we're not going to pay for a frisbee, but maybe we would pay for like if you want to give away like some kind of something that people put in their car so that to like hold trash so that they're not throwing it out the window. Like something like that. If it's like educational in nature, if it says something educational on it, if it's brochures, that sort of thing. But yeah, not just, you know, a frisbee, just for fun, with your logo on it. So, let's see. Just see if there's anything else that I had put on my notes that I didn't mention now. Um, yeah. Okay. If you want to ask those questions, Amanda.
Yep. Okay, let's see. Where do we leave off? Okay, would a baler or a roll-off equipment fall under equipment or the source reduction and recycling? It says you mentioned balers under the source reduction section earlier.
Okay, so they they are equipment and you would put them in the equipment section of your budget. But yeah, I mean if they're for a recycling project at a recycling facility, then yes, they would go you would apply for the source reduction and recycling project and under the equipment category in the budget is where you would list the baler or the whatever a roll off. Yeah. Now, if the roll off is for a transfer station and it's going to be used for trash, then you would apply under the transfer station one, not the recycling one. But yeah, but again, it would go under equipment.
This one is also about equipment, specifically a bulldozer. Would that be an allowable purchase under this grant? And if so, what limits should we be aware of?
Um, I would just say for any equipment, you just need to show like why it's needed. So the scoring committee is going to have questions about how often something is going to get used. If you're requesting a piece of equipment that you're going to use, you know, once every quarter, they may wonder why you can't just rent that piece of equipment or hire somebody to do that job if it's just going to be sitting around not getting used for the majority of the time. So, so just I would in your application, you definitely, they're in the budget section, there's the budget narrative. So in that section, you're just going to want to explain, why you really need to purchase this equipment instead of, going some other route. Um, there was a time where there was somebody who wanted to purchase something and it was pretty expensive and they did not get funded. So then they came back 2 years later and they had like they were able to, they had found the money to pay for 30%, and then the scoring committee was like, "Yay, we're excited about this." And then they paid for that. But so just also keep that in mind. If there's any way that you can pay for a portion of it, that would be seen favorably. So hopefully I answered that question.
Next is, would food waste diversion or composting projects be applicable under the category for source reduction and recycling?
Yes.
And then if you were printing educational materials on a magnet or sticker, would that still go under supplies or would it go under other budget? Same question for signage for an event, which would last longer than 12 months but isn't expensive.
So I would say, I would put all of those under other. I would not put those under supplies, even though, yeah, like signage, yeah, there is there's like in our budget with TCQ, there's a specific section, or it does mention signage there, so I would put it under other. I was trying to think of like what the difference is between supplies and like things that you mentioned in that question. I mean, in supplies, I would say there are things that get used up. A magnet doesn't really get used up. Like I mean, the city or county doesn't have it in their hands anymore, but like the person still does out there. But like baling wire, the big um, boxes that are used in HHW programs, the gloves, the little grabbery things, those are supplies. But yeah, I would say education materials and signage and everything like that needs to go in the other section.
Okay, next is, if you need to ask your solid waste contractor for additional services or incur additional costs for the grant, could that be included under contractual budget?
Um, so yeah, we have paid for like that's not like a common one that we've done. I'll give you an example of where we did pay for something like that. It was it's the city of Austin put out some new big recycling dumpster type things, and they did have a contract with some company. I don't remember who at this point, and it doesn't matter. So we did pay for that contract for the first 12 months or whatever the period of the grant was. So we did do that. And it's possible they already had a contract with them to do other stuff in the city. Maybe they had their curbside collection of trash. I'm not sure. But yeah, so we did pay for that. And it's possible if the situation is super different than that, maybe I need more information.
Next one is, I understand no food, but what about items like reusable water coolers and dispensers, like 5-gallon insulated dispensers that we can fill with filtered water to use at events to provide water to staff and volunteers who will be encouraged to bring reusable water bottles? This is something we've wanted to do in order to reduce the number of single-use water bottles used at events.
Um, hmm. We've not paid for those in the past, to my knowledge. But I don't know if it's not eligible. I may have to ask TCQ about that one and think about that one a little bit longer. But so some kind of filtration situation or coolers to keep stuff. We may have paid for a cooler before. Um, Yeah, I may need to ask TCQ about that one. I haven't mentioned it yet, but they are the deciders of everything. Our HJC and the scoring committee, they do the initial like selection, but then TCQ gets the final decision making, and they can change your budget at that point as well. So yeah, I can reach out to them.
This one is for the question about the solid waste contract. I was thinking about if we need to have a couple roll-offs at a household hazardous waste event, and pay for their hauls. So I don't know if there's any. Um, other clarification needed there.
Okay, so I guess it's just like, can we pay? We would pay for the like the rental of the roll off. We wouldn't pay for the disposal part. Um, so yes, it would be okay to like also have a roll off at an HHW event if that was the question.
And then last one for right now is, do you have a suggested grant range that you prefer to fund at?
Hmm. So it's not me making that decision, it is the scoring committee. So, um, I would say there are definitely projects over $100,000 that get funded. And we've even funded some that were bigger when it was like a brand new facility in some community for, recycling or a transfer station or something like that, or an HHW facility. So we've definitely funded really big projects. It's not super often, but we also don't often get those really big ones. But we definitely have grants that are over $100,000, I would say every single time that do get, somebody gets funded that is requesting that much. So I would just say whatever your project is, if it's a good project, you've shown that there's the actual need and you haven't like puffed up the budget and they like the project, then you're going to get funded. If it scores high enough compared to all the others. It could be a good project and still not get funded just because we run out of money. But yeah, there's not um yeah, I don't know. I mean, they fund the big projects too. So if you want like specific details on like how many projects of different types and different amounts, I can help get that information. I don't have that in my head right now, but I can help get that information if needed. Was there anything else?
Nope, right now that was the last one.
Okay. All right. We will continue. All right, so we're going to go into the rest of the application now. So, okay, so we've talked about the budget and what types of things are eligible for different types of projects or just under each of the categories. Um, so it is important in that grant section, like I just mentioned, to put a good description in that budget summary. It is required that you put something, but you want to make it really good to explain why you really need that equipment or that service or, whatever it is, this employee. Um, you want to be realistic in your budget. You don't, you want to make sure that you don't include anything that's not eligible in your budget for funding because we don't give you the opportunity to reassign that funds. We just, as we're deciding on the funding, if you score high enough to receive funding, but you've asked for $1,000 of water in water bottles, we're just going to cross that out and you're going to get $1,000 less. Um, so just make sure that you are only requesting stuff that is eligible for funding. Um, and that, yeah, you justify all those expenses. Um, and then you may want to think about, getting a quote and going a little bit above, just in case the prices go up over time. Although I feel like the majority of the time, prices seem to have gone down from when, which sounds really weird, but people always have money left over in their budget. It is much more common to have money left over in the budget than to like over, to not have enough to do your project. So just keep that in mind. Don't way overestimate those numbers. So let's see. Just want to make sure there's nothing else I had put in my notes that I wanted to say, but nope, that was it. All right. So the authority to sign part at the end of the application as you're hitting submit, who can actually sign that application, that just like all the procurement stuff, that depends on you. Um, you know, if the city manager can sign, that's fine. If it has to be the mayor, that's fine for us. If it can be a department head for y'all, that's fine for us as well. So we don't require it to be anybody. So just yeah, just make sure you follow your rules so you don't get in trouble. And just like that, we also do not require that you get approval ahead of time from your county commissioners court or your city council, but maybe you do. So keep that in mind as well. Um, but it is not required by the grant at all. All right, certifications and assurances. These, I think there should be links at the end from the actual application. And these are just things that when you sign off on the application, you are agreeing to these things that you're going to abide by these. So that you are not in competition with private industry, that it is consistent with our regional solid waste management plan, that the costs that you have put in your budget are reasonable and necessary, that if you're doing a local enforcement grant and you need to be in compliance with the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, or at least achieving compliance. You need to agree that if you do purchase any kind of equipment, that you will reach out to us in the future, when you are looking to get rid of that piece of equipment many years from now, to get guidance on that. You're agreeing that you are going to provide us with results during the grant period as well as a year after the grant ends, because we do have to report everything to the Texas legislature every time that they meet. Um, let's see. And there we go. Sorry, I accidentally scrolled forward. Let's see if there's anything else. But yeah, so, that you're using everything you're purchasing for only for solid waste, unless, like I mentioned, you are saying, hey, I'm going to pay for this 20% and we're just asking for the 80% or, whatever those numbers are. And yeah, there's other things in those, but I just picked a few to talk about. All right. So the funding standards, like I just mentioned, everything's getting used for solid waste. Um, if you're doing local enforcement or cleanup, you need to be coordinating with TCQ or Keep Texas Beautiful. Um, you got to keep everything on your inventory and also report it to us so we can keep it on our inventory. And then, of course, everything can only be purchased within the grant period. So anything gets purchased outside of the grant period, we would not reimburse you for. And let's see. Okay. So the selection criteria. So this is the parts of the application that actually have points associated with them. So we're going to go through those sections now. So, and I have like put a lot of things in the guidance document that kind of tells you what they're looking for in those sections, but we're going to go through a lot of it now. I may not mention everything that's in the guidance document. So do make sure you are reviewing that as you're filling out this application. So, if your project, you meet all the requirements and it gets to be scored, it will go to the scoring committee. And these are the things that they are going to score you on. So you can get up to 45 points for project merits and needs, up to 25 points for local resources and commitment, and then up to 30 points for project evaluation. And we will break those down. Well, I'm not going to give you the points here, but maybe you can see that on the screen, or it's also in the guidance documents. So for the project merits and needs section, let's see. I mean, really, first thing I want to mention is kind of for the entire application, you want to be clear, you want to be concise, but you also want to be thorough. You want to make sure that the scoring committee has a good idea of what your project is all about, at like exactly what you're asking for because there are times when an application gets submitted and it's a little bit confusing. So I would recommend having somebody else read it, not just the person that's submitting it, but have somebody else read it at your city or county, or you can have one of us at HJC read through it just to make sure we understand what you're asking for. So, the scoring committee members are going to be subject matter experts, so you don't have to explain obvious things, but you do want to be thorough, like I mentioned. Okay, so under need for project. So here's where you're going to tell us what you want to do and how does this project get this, um, how does this project address that need? So, um, maybe you have documented this need because citizens are calling and requesting a service, or you have some piece of equipment that is constantly breaking down, and so you need to replace that equipment, and that's what you're asking for in this grant project. Or maybe you've, been driving around your community and you see all kinds of litter or all kinds of illegal dumping. Just explain what your need is thoroughly. And I would recommend for a lot of things, like if it is something that is because you drove around and you noticed it, like if you could include pictures of examples in your community, I think that goes a long way in your application. Um, let's see. Maybe you've already had past projects, you've already been addressing this problem, but there's still more to be done. So you can still ask for funding for that. Um, let's see. And even if you haven't had a past project, it's a new need. That's totally fine. Um, but yeah, just explain because we really want to fund projects that are going to make a big difference in those communities. So that's what we're looking to do is to make the biggest impact that we can in our region. So Um, let's see. And if you are a past recipient and the scoring committee members remember that, you may want to explain why you need more funding for either the same thing or maybe it's to expand on this project that you've already been working on. So just keep that in mind. A lot of times it is a lot of the same scoring committee people and maybe they remember. They might not. So let's see. For the objective, this is just like the goals of your city, your county. How does this tie into that? What is the whole point of this project that you're requesting money for? And if you do have some kind of strategic plan or something like that, you would want to mention that here, how it ties into that. And also, you can describe the expected benefits of this project. Project feasibility. So this really gets into how are you going to complete this project in the allotted amount of time. So it could be, the staffing, you have the right staff in order to do it, or you're asking for the right stuff in order to be able to complete this project. You have enough time, like you've thought through that. That's where that timeline that was mentioned earlier is in this section. Just to make sure that you've thought through, like, yes, I can complete it. 15 months is the most. Some projects will get funded for only 9 months. So do keep that in mind. We do take into account how long it'll take to complete a project when we are deciding who gets funded when. But yeah, so at a minimum, you need to be able to complete it in 9 months. Let's see. Um, yeah, so know who's going to do what, have a good plan for how you're going to get this project accomplished. If you can quantify anything, that's great. Like it's going to save lots of time because this new equipment is, saves time or something like that. Let's see. And then this was mentioned earlier, but I will go into more detail now. So this is something that is new in the application. We are having you address in this section, in the project feasibility section. And that was the question that was asked about the backup plans. So we are this last grant cycle, we did have a lot of money that did go unspent. And so we did have to come up with a lot of plan Bs for all the grantees in order to spend that money. So we thought if people could go ahead and think of it now, it'd be a lot faster when that time comes or if it comes. So I'm going to give a couple of examples, but these are obviously, you may have better ideas of how to spend the money if you have any kind of leftover money at the end. So you are not limited to this, but a lot of times for one day events, turnout might not be as great at your one day event because of weather or just other things that are going on. So yeah. All right. So for those one day collection events, maybe don't schedule it, the month before the grant ends. That way you can do a second event, several months later if needed, or if there's still a need, but um yeah, and you have funds left over. Let's see. And maybe it has to be on a smaller scale, but because you don't have that much money left over. But yeah, so maybe plan ahead, schedule things earlier. Like I mentioned for the HW specific question that was about this, the idea that you could maybe work out something with a community that has a permanent facility and get some HHW vouchers for your residents to use that facility afterwards. And you could purchase the vouchers during the grant period and they could use them, for up to like a year after that. They don't all have to get used before, that May 31st deadline. You could purchase them and they could get used after that. You would still be tracking those results, but yeah. Let's see. So for permanent facilities, maybe you need to purchase some additional supplies. You've got lots of, things that you're purchasing on a regular basis. So maybe purchase just a little bit extra of those that you're getting low on. Maybe do some kind of outreach and education on your permanent facility just to increase the usage of it for your local people. Um, Maybe there's some kind of training that your staff could benefit from, whether that's online training or attending some kind of conference or workshop, because we could pay for that. And it could be specific to, I don't know, if there's some new equipment you purchased and you need training on that specific equipment, it could be very specific to that, or it could be more general, like um, a recycling conference. Um, let's see. So for cleanup events, the first things that I thought of when I was working on this presentation were, so if you did, like a litter cleanup event, the community came out and did that sort of thing. Maybe you can purchase some extra supplies and you can like let community groups know that you have these supplies and they can host their own event. And then you could just, let them borrow these supplies or use them. We have funded a grant like that. That was what the grant was, that we purchased things for them to be able to loan out to the community groups that wanted to host litter collection events. Um, let's see. You could also get some kind of signage about like don't litter or something like that as well. Let's see. For illegal dumping enforcement, a lot of times they end up purchasing. So a lot of times we are purchasing those cameras for the illegal dumping surveillance, and so we purchase more of those cameras so they can monitor more locations. We can also pay for training for staff if there's something coming up. For education and training grants, we could always do another round of outreach. If you've only planned on doing, I don't know how many, 3 months worth, and we could do another month or whatever. Um, like I mentioned, we do not buy giveaways, but if there's anything else that would be considered an education item and not a giveaway specifically, we can pay for that. So materials that you need to host in-person education events. Like we've purchased laptops and maybe like some kind of, I don't know, kits or something if you have like school groups come to you. Um, but yeah, like things like that we could pay for. For technical studies, I was trying to think of something as well. So maybe if you do this study, you want to be able to promote the results of it afterwards. So if the study comes in cheaper for whatever reason, maybe you could do some kind of like marketing situation where you're promoting the results because it shows something that you want the community to know about. Um, Either to encourage their behavior change or for them to start doing something, to implement something. Let's see. Okay. So hopefully that gave people some ideas. And yes, you can have your own ideas for sure on that as well. So for the outreach and education section, like I mentioned earlier, we do encourage all projects to have some component of outreach and education to go along with their project. Whether it's encouraging people to recycle right or to, you know, calculate how much paint they need and not just buy a whole bunch of extra or, the products that they're buying to clean their house or whatever it is. Um, so so we do encourage you to have some type of outreach and education to go along with your project. So, um, let's see. In this section, you're going to describe what you're going to be doing for that outreach and education, how the public's going to be involved in this project, if there's any specific like strategies or methods of reaching people you're going to be using, just whatever you've got planned, put that in this section. All right, so for the next section, local resources and commitment. Um, so for ability to sustain the project, so we have a question on in the next section that is your return on your investment. So this one is more of like maybe the personnel that you have the ability to sustain this project, or just because you've done it, you've got the experience now. It could include things about future funding plans, but it also could include, yeah, the just the knowledge. You've already got it set up. You've got everything in place, that sort of thing. Um, so if the project has received HJC funding in the past, and you're asking for funding again, why is this one different? Does it expand on what you've already done or, you know, whatever. But yeah, just explain um, how you're going to be able to sustain this project in the future. We do hope that we're funding projects that are going to continue for the long haul. Let's see. And we do know that you can't promise future budget funds towards a project. But maybe you've had success at adding a position in the past or keeping something going, and you could just, tell that anecdotally, I guess, that you have had success in the past and you expect that to also happen this time. Let's see. Or maybe you're seeking other funding streams. All right, so the next section, matching funds and in kind. This is not a requirement. We don't have like a 5% requirement for matching funds, but you do get points for it. And like I mentioned on that one example project earlier, they didn't get funded 1 year, because it was a but then when they showed that they had some skin in the game, they were going to pay for whatever portion it was, about 20% maybe. Um, they got funded that time. So it does help your project to score well, I would say. And maybe not in just this section, maybe it makes them have a better feeling about it in other sections as well. I am not on the scoring committee, so I can't say for sure, but that might be the case. So for the partnership section, um, let's see. So it does make for a stronger application to show that you're working with other communities or local community groups. Um, so, as I mentioned earlier, maybe you and your neighboring community or just the cities in your county, you all have the same needs. You were planning to apply for the same project, so maybe it would be more effective to just have, one event or one facility or, one outreach campaign on the same topic. And maybe it would be helpful to do it all together. Let's see. So definitely reach out, but even if, um, but yeah, even if it's not like another local government, if it's just like community partners, like school groups or nonprofit organizations or whatever, just mention those, show how you're working together. All right. Project evaluation. So, return on investment. So, for this one, so if the project is going to be able to fund itself in the future because you are, you know, collecting fines from those that are found illegal dumping, or you are, I don't know, you're saving man hours because you got this new piece of equipment or something like that. You want to put that here, how it's going to, or you're just going to collect so much more recyclables, whatever it is. Um, put that here. Let's see. So, okay. So, there could be a piece of equipment that you're not going to use that often, and maybe that's going to show that it's not a good return on the investment. But maybe you're looking to purchase something more expensive, like a permanent facility, and it's going to get used all the time. So the return on the investment would be greater for that one, potentially. Okay, anticipated effectiveness. So why is this project going to be effective? How is it a good plan to address the needs that you have? Um, so just if you have, um, I'm not sure what I was going to say, but yeah. So just yeah, how you're expecting it to be addressing your needs in your community. Let's see, and be specific if you can. So measures of a success. So what does success look like for your project? Are you are going to have to give submit results to us on a quarterly basis throughout your project and then again a year later. But if there's any other way that you would measure success, that maybe for those of you that haven't had a grant, you don't know what type of reporting is required, but maybe there's some kind of different way that you would measure success. So by behavior change or something like that. So what is success going to look like? All right, this section, additional program information. So these questions are different depending on what type of project you select that you're doing, like source reduction and recycling, household hazardous waste, local enforcement. So the questions are specific to the type of grant that you select on the first tab of the application. There is no point value associated with any of these questions. But I do think that they give the scoring committee like a more complete picture of your project and what you have planned. Because I think it includes some stuff that maybe you wouldn't normally include in the other sections. And also, if you are selected for funding, it has a lot of questions in there that we have on things that we have to report to TCEQ. So it just helps us be able to do that quicker without having to come back and ask you lots of questions so that we can submit it to TCQ for their approval. So yeah. And then I think there may only be one or I know there's at least one grant category that doesn't have any additional questions, or maybe I think there's only one. There could be two. So if you've selected that one and you don't see questions, don't panic. But yeah. All right. So presentations and scoring. So If you weren't aware, you are required to give a presentation to the scoring committee. So those presentations are going to happen on October 29th and 30th. It will be held virtually, and each applicant gets just 15 minutes. Really, you get 10 minutes. So you get 5 minutes for your presentation. You get the scoring committee gets 5 minutes to ask you questions, and then they score for 5 minutes. So you're really only there for 10 minutes. Um, let's see. So you're not going to be able to go through your whole applications. So you want to just focus on the highlights, what makes your project really amazing, lots of pictures. Um, and yeah. Let's see. Um, so we do, when the scoring committee is scoring, afterwards we do drop the high and the low scores. Anybody that has a conflict, like if it's a Walker County grant, and there's a Walker County person on the scoring committee, they don't get to score that Walker County grant. But yeah, so we drop the high and the low score, and then we average what's left, and that's how you get your score, your overall score. We do decide on funding that same day on or at the end of the second day of scoring. So a lot of times I will get the results out that same day, but if we have a whole lot of applications and we go till pretty late, it will come out at the latest the next day, October 31st. Um, I do, when we're making that schedule, I do ask, for the times or the dates that you are absolutely not available. But somebody has to be available at some point in time on those 2 days for you to be, uh, to get scored. So you may want to also have a backup person in case that person is unexpectedly out, so that they can give that presentation because it does happen. All right. Um, So after the scoring happens, you're going to get the results on the 31st at the latest, like I mentioned, and there is an opportunity to appeal that decision. You could only appeal though, it can't just be you didn't like the results. It has to be like something was done incorrectly. So for example, like you will all get access to what we send out to the scoring committee, and you're like, hey, you didn't include pages 2 through 4 of our application. Like, we're gonna appeal the decision. That's a valid reason to appeal the decision. But just not liking how the scoring committee scored it is not okay. Or if we don't give you your 5 minutes or something like that. Um, let's see. Uh, and then on November 14th. If there are any appeals, the full solid waste management committee will meet on November 14th. If there's no appeals, they'll still meet on November 14th to approve everything. It will go to the December board of HJC on December 16th. It then has to go to TCQ for their review, like I mentioned. We hopefully will hear back sometime in January from them, and we'll start working on contracts with you so that the first people who are the grants in the first round or the first year of funding would start March 1st, and those selected for the second year would start on September 1st. So, yeah, our fiscal year or our yeah, the fiscal year starts September. So that's why the second year is so close to the first year, because the fiscal year has already started. Let's see. I feel like there was something else I wanted to say about this, but I don't remember. Okay. So qualities of a good project. I've mentioned it a couple of times, just showing that there is a real need for this project, that the what you're asking for is actually going to address that need. That you have backing from upper management. It's not just some one employee somewhere who's really gung-ho about this, and if they leave, then the whole project falls apart. We don't want that to happen. Definitely do your research, talk to other people about what they've done so that you can make your project as effective as possible. And then also, you know, if your project is not really about solid waste, it's about, I don't know, something else, it's not going to score as well. Um, let's see. All right. So I've mentioned a couple times that including education is important. So just to promote a lasting change, whether it's buying less of some material or doing the right thing or whatever the case may be. Um, if it's a new idea and we're able to replicate this project in other communities after seeing how great it works in your community, that's also great. If it's cost effective, and you're not duplicating efforts. So definitely make sure you're not applying for the same thing as some other department in your community. Um, let's see. The qualities of a good application: thorough but concise. Are your outcomes realistic? Is the project impact realistic? Have you said anything that's, blatantly false in there? Hopefully not. So just the statistics or whatever the information you've shared in your application, does it make sense? Please do spell check, um, and grammar check and all of that. And then, yeah, just be as honest as you can. Don't overstate match. Don't super pad your budget, that sort of thing. Um, so quite a few years back, I asked our solid waste management committee for some tips from them. And so they said it was really important to understand your agency's purchasing process. Um, it's probably more important later on when you're actually implementing than right now as you're filling out the application. But just keep that in mind in case you're new to your community, and things can sometimes take a really long time in certain communities, and other ones are like super fast. So just know how that works in your community to make sure you're going to have enough time to implement your project. Um, Pictures are great in your application. I think they can show a need for sure if it's something like litter or illegal dumping, or even just like the piece of equipment that you're going to buy, because they are subject matter experts, but maybe there's a local enforcement person scoring your facility. You're asking for a baler for your facility, so maybe they don't know what that specific baler looks like because they're experts in local enforcement. But so yeah, so pictures even of just stuff you're planning to purchase could be great. Um, yeah, make sure you're talking with everybody that is going to be working on this application during implementation to make sure you're not missing anything. Talk with those partners, just to make it a really robust application. Um, Definitely make sure you have time to review your application. Don't wait until the last minute. Um, you you want to, uh, like make sure you don't have lots of grammatical errors and those spelling mistakes, and it makes it harder to read, and it, you know, um, it might just give them a bad impression of your project, and that maybe you're not as focused as you should be. So just make sure you have enough time to really go through it and make sure you've answered all the questions that we've asked you to answer. Let's see. And then just to also be organized and keep everything in one place. This one is also for once you are actually implementing your project. So let's see. Oh, and I wanted to mention, I don't think I've mentioned this. I think I've included it maybe in emails, but I don't know, maybe not. If you do want HJC staff to review your application before you submit it, we are happy to do that. We don't score, so we are able to review your application, talk through your project with you at any time, but you do want to make sure that we have enough time, that you're not giving it to us like at 8 a.m. on the day it's due, because at that point, I don't know that we could do anything except, yeah, we wouldn't have time at that point. So just make sure you get it to us early enough if you do want us to review it for you. So yeah, have a good strong summary. At the beginning, there's the summary for your project, but also in the for the budget items, I would say that's really important. Make sure you complete everything. The it should make you complete everything in the application, but you should also double check that you've completed everything, in case it does let you submit it without having completed something. So, we've tried to help you out, but you also need to make sure. Yeah, make sure you've addressed everything that I've mentioned in the guidance under the review criteria. Just make sure you're gonna have enough time to actually do it in that at most 15 months. And then let's see. And yeah, don't ask for 15 months of salary if you're really only gonna have 10 months to use it because it takes you that long to hire somebody. You know your processes, so just adjust accordingly. Let's see. All right. Oh, here's why I mentioned we can review drafts. So, um, we'll say it again. Give us time. We'd love to help you, if you give us enough time to do that. So send it to me. You can also send it to Amanda, who's been the one asking questions. We're happy to talk through things with you. And then, yeah, just think about partnerships, other local governments, maybe nonprofits in your community. It could be a private company that maybe is going to partner with you in some way, just other local community groups, that sort of thing. And yeah, and just don't submit your application or try not to submit your application at the very last minute because I don't know if your clock's different than our clock and it hits 12 before you get submitted, then we can't accept it. It automatically locks the application at that point. So you don't want to wait until the last minute. So, all right, I think that is it. So here is our contact information. Um, so feel free to reach out to us at any time. And what questions do you got for me, Amanda?
I was gonna say, ready for some questions. Okay.
Yeah.
So for the application agreement and signature, will the signatory authority have to physically go into the grant application on the website? Or if a document with the signatory authority's signature regarding the certifications and assurances is attached to the application supporting documents, is that satisfactory?
So it's just a type in the name. So I mean if they've reviewed it and they're like, yes, you can put my name and you know, hit submit. Like I think that's more of what it is. It's not like we don't have a it's not like a Adobe sign where it's like it's nothing like that. It's just a type of the name. So just we just want to make sure you're thinking about and not um submitting an application when you did not follow the proper procedures is really what it is. So just make sure you've talked to the right people and and they've reviewed the application and they're okay with you submitting it. Because it's more, yeah, it's just typing in a name and clicking, yes, we've done these things.
Next is, should we also be talking about advertisements and outreach for promoting the event itself in our outreach and education section?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You would include that there.
Next is, can we do a PowerPoint presentation for the scoring meeting?
Yeah, yeah. You do only have 5 minutes. Um, we will have some practice days sometime between when the in the like the week leading up to those scoring days. We'll have like we normally have two opportunities where you can get on and make sure your presentation shares just like you're expecting it to. It works, it looks good on our system, that sort of thing. Because we don't like if you're all of a sudden having technical issues and you can't share or something, um, you're just gonna have to give your presentation without it. So yeah, a lot of people have slides and that's totally fine. And that's great because then people get to, look at the pictures that you want to share with them or whatever. Um, but yeah, just know that you may have to go without it if something, goes crazy that day. And we do also, so during those 5 minutes when they're scoring, um, you want to make sure you get on in plenty of time so that you're there for those 5 minutes while they're scoring the application before yours. And that way, we have 5 minutes to get your presentation loaded and ready to go. So, yeah.
And the
But yeah,
last,
it's not required. And some people who don't have a presentation do, get funded. So, just depends.
and then the last one we have in the chat for right now is if you partner with another city, do both cities need to submit an application?
No, you would only submit one. If you submit two, that would be very confusing. And then they potentially both would get funded, and that's not what you're looking for. So yeah, you would submit one. And the way that it would work, so we would have a contract with one of you. Um, and that's the person who we would like make the reimbursement payments to. So just keep that in mind. That's how that would work. But yeah, definitely, partner with people. Just one person's probably going to be needing to make all the expenses, and then the other people are, supplying the in kind and stuff like that, and then, maybe some match. Yeah.
I don't see any other questions right now.
All right. Well, we are recording this, like was mentioned at the beginning, so we are going to get this posted to our website if you want to go back and listen to it again. Um, or if you got it all, but you just have questions for us that you want to talk in greater detail one-on-one, definitely reach out to us, email us at any time. Um, and we are happy to help. I don't think I think I've said everything. All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending and good luck.